Hello, everyone, and I hope you all are keeping in the best of your health and the spirits too. Here I come with another video of mine today, and the topic for this is consideration. I have been making videos on the various essentials of a valid contract, and this particular video is a part of that only. So, one of the essential elements of a valid contract is that there has to be that there has to be a consideration to make it a valid contract. Now, what is the meaning of consideration? Consideration over here in the technical language means that when two parties are making themselves a part of a contract, both the parties, that is, uh, the offerer and the offeree, both the parties should get something in return. This something in return is called as consideration. And the law is so particular about this particular aspect of a contract that it says no consideration means no contract. So, consideration is an essential element of a valid contract. Here, there is one more thing that needs to be kept in mind, and that is there has to be consideration in any contract. But whether this consideration is adequate or not is not important. Consideration is there, it means it's a valid contract. If we find that this consideration is not adequate, then we have to find out other means to prove this. But as far as the validity of a contract is concerned, just as the parties are getting something in return, it would be called as a valid contract. So the points that you need to keep in mind before we start with this particular video today is that consideration is an essential element of a valid contract. Number two, consideration means that both the parties should get something in return, and it is called as quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo in technical terms. And no consideration means no contract is the general rule. So these are the 3 points that we need to keep in mind before we start with this topic. Now I move ahead. The takeaways or the objectives of this particular video is that by the end of this video, you would be in a position to understand what is the meaning of consideration. I'm going to provide you the best definition of consideration so that it's easy for you to remember and improve the quality of your answer. We would be discussing the essentials of a valid consideration. Then, to explain this particular topic, one needs to understand the leading case of Chinnaya versus Ramaiah. I would be throwing light on this particular case as well. Then there is a topic called as exceptions to consideration, and this video would end with the test of your knowledge, how attentive you were during this whole video. Now we start with the meaning of consideration. I have already given a brief into this. Let me just repeat these points again. Consideration is one of the essential elements of a valid contract. No consideration, no contract is the general rule. An agreement without consideration is void. Means if one party is getting something and the other party is not getting anything in return, it would not be termed as a valid contract. It would be a void agreement. When a person makes a promise, he must get something in return. This something is called as consideration. Let me explain this with the help of an example. Suppose if I am selling you a pen for rupees 20. I am one party to this particular agreement, you are another party. And the reasons for the two of us coming together is this pen. I'm going to give the pen to you and you have to give me the money. And what are both of us getting? I'm going to get money and you are going to get a pen. So both of us are getting something in return. So it is an example of a valid contract. I hope it's clear to you all. The definition of consideration is given by Sir Frederick Pollock. It says, consideration is a price for which the promise of the other is bought, and the promise thus given for value is enforceable. When a transaction takes place, each party gets something in return, and this something is consideration. A very important part of this particular topic is essentials of consideration. The first point says consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. To explain this point, let me explain the real case of Durga Prasad versus Baldev, which took place in the year 1880. Under this leading case, just pay attention to every aspect of this case. Under this leading case, there was a district collector and a famous market in a particular town. So the district collector called up one contractor and he asked the contractor to bring about changes in the market or bring about some kind of improvements in the market so that the pathetic condition of the market could be dealt with. Now, as soon as this particular contractor he received orders from the district collector, he immediately went to the marketplace and he started working over the improvements. Now, whosoever were the shopkeepers in that particular market, they were very happy with this initiative of this contractor. They said that as you are coming up with this kind of initiative, you are bringing improvements in the market, you are helping us out. We promise to pay you some kind of commission from the sale proceeds of this particular whatever we are going to sell in this particular market. The contractor was very happy because he was getting things from the he was getting an amount from the collector. At the same time, these shopkeepers had also promised him some kind of commission from the sale proceeds. So once this market was constructed and the improvements were made and these shopkeepers started with their business, they did give this commission to this particular contractor for a couple of time for some time. And then one particular shopkeeper, that is Baldev, he made one particular shopkeeper, he came up with some kind of unrest. He said that why should we be paying this particular commission to this contractor? Did he make improvements on our request? No, he didn't. As he didn't make these improvements on our request, we are not liable to pay anything in the form of commission to this particular contractor. And when this case was taken to the court, it was this particular shopkeeper who won because the court decided that these improvements were not made on the request of the shopkeepers. These improvements were made on the request of the district collector. So these shopkeepers were not a party to a contract. So these shopkeepers are not entitled to give any commission to the contractor. Let me explain this with the help of a very simple example. Let me explain with the help of an example in Hindi over here so that it gets more clear. Say for example, अगर मेरी कार कैंपस में खड़ी हुई है and कार बहुत ही गंदी सी पड़ी हुई है, so one particular person he just comes और वो अपनी मर्जी से मेरी गाड़ी को साफ कर देता है. मैंने तो नहीं कहा गाड़ी साफ करने के लिए, वो अपनी मर्जी से गाड़ी साफ करता है. Then that person comes to me and says, मैंने आपकी गाड़ी साफ करी है, आप मुझे 200 रुपए दीजिए. So here, although on the grounds of morality किसी ने अगर मेहनत करी है तो हम उसको पैसे दे देंगे, पर अगर हम लॉ की लैंग्वेज में सोचे तो क्या उसने मेरे कहने पे गाड़ी साफ करी? नहीं, उसने अपने मन से गाड़ी साफ करी. तो किस बात के पैसे? I am not entitled to pay any kind of money to this particular person. So here what we need to keep in mind that consideration जो है वो तभी कहलाएगा जब consideration जो जिसकी तरफ से आ रहा है, that particular person is a party to a contract. If the person is not a party to a contract, it would not be a valid consideration. Next is consideration may move from the promisee or any other person. पहले मैं इसको सिंपल एग्जांपल से समझाती हूँ, उसके बाद में एक केस समझाऊंगी चिन्नैया वर्सेस रमैया का. Say for example, अगर there are 3 people, me, A and B. अगर मुझे बी को कुछ पैसे देने हैं, मैंने बी से कुछ सामान लिया है और मुझे बी को 500 रुपए देने हैं, तो ये पैसे या तो मैं दूं और अगर ए मेरा अच्छा फ्रेंड है, मेरे बदले ए यदि वो पैसे दे रहा है तो भी वो कंसिडरेशन कहलाएगा. लॉ सेज जरूरी नहीं है कि कंसिडरेशन पार्टी से ही जाए. कंसिडरेशन पार्टी के बदले यदि कोई और दे रहा है तो भी वो वैलिड कंसिडरेशन कहलाता है. नाउ लेट मी एक्सप्लेन दिस केस ऑफ चिन्नैया वर्सेस रमैया. This case is basically about a father, daughter, and father's younger brother, that is the uncle of the daughter. इस केस में क्या है, एक फादर है, उनकी एक बेटी है और उस लड़की के अंकल है या जिसे हम हिंदी में चाचा कह सकते हैं. So what happens in this case is a father is very much concerned about his younger brother. एक पापा एक uncle the father has a younger brother और उनकी financial condition बहुत अच्छी नहीं है तो उसके लिए worried है वो. तो वो अपनी बेटी को बुलाते हैं. He tells his daughter that I will transfer the whole of my property on your name on one condition that you have to promise an annuity of a fixed amount to my brother. मैं अपनी पूरी प्रॉपर्टी तुम्हारे नाम कर दूंगा लेकिन तुमको इसके बदले इस प्रॉपर्टी के बदले मेरे भाई को कुछ फिक्स्ड अमाउंट हर साल देना होगा. The daughter immediately agrees, and this agreement takes place between the father and the daughter, and the father transfers the whole property on the name of his daughter. डॉटर जो है वो प्रॉपर्टी मिलने के बाद कुछ समय तक वो अपने अंकल को हर साल पैसे देती है. देन शी रियलाइजेस इसमें दोनों पार्टीज को कंसिडरेशन, लॉ कहता है दोनों पार्टीज को कंसिडरेशन मिलना चाहिए. मैं तो सिर्फ अंकल को पैसे देती जा रही हूँ. वेयर इज व्हाट इज अंकल गिविंग टू मी? वेयर इज माय कंसिडरेशन? So then the uncle and the daughter, they go to the court, and here the court favors the uncle on the grounds that zaruri nahi hai ki consideration jo hai that would be given by the uncle. Consideration has already been given on behalf of the uncle by the father of the daughter. क्योंकि यदि वो अपने पापा को प्रॉमिस नहीं करती कि मैं हर साल पैसे दूंगी आपके भाई को, तो फादर अपनी प्रॉपर्टी ट्रांसफर करते ही नहीं. So property was transferred on one ground, that is she has to give an annuity to her uncle, and just because she refuses to pay the annuity, this particular matter is taken to the court, and the court favors the uncle on the grounds that the consideration has already been given by the father, so she is entitled to pay that amount of annuity to her uncle. Next is consideration may be past, present or future. Suppose if I sell a pen to you today, मैं आपको आज ही पेन दे दूं और आप मुझे उसके पैसे आज ही दे दो, तो ये हो गया प्रेजेंट कंसिडरेशन, सब कुछ अभी हो गया. सपोज मैं आपको आज पेन दे देती हूँ और पैसे आप इसके मुझे 4 दिन के बाद देते हो. यदि आप मुझे 4 दिन के बाद देते हो तो मेरे लिए वो हो जाएगा पास्ट कंसिडरेशन, और यदि आप पैसे 4 दिन के बाद दे रहे हो तो आपके लिए वो हो जाएगा फ्यूचर कंसिडरेशन, क्योंकि आप आज पैसे नहीं दे रहे हो, आप पैसे 4 दिन के बाद दे रहे हो. सो कंसिडरेशन हैज टू बी देयर, चाहे वो आज मिले, चाहे वो एक कुछ चीज हमें पहले ही मिल चुकी है उसके लिए हमें फ्यूचर में मिल रहा है, तो भी वो कंसिडरेशन कहलाएगा. Consideration must be real and not illusionary. Consideration has to be real. Suppose if a surgery is taking place and the patient's family members, they come to the doctor and say अगर आप ऑपरेशन अच्छे से करोगे तो I promise to pay you extra. ऑपरेशन अच्छे से करोगे, सर्जरी अच्छे से करोगे तो I promise to pay you extra. ये एक्स्ट्रा की क्या डेफिनेशन है? इट कैन बी से 5,000, इट कैन बी 10,000, इट कैन बी 1 लाख, इट कैन बी एनीथिंग. एंड फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ये कहीं भी ये कंसिडरेशन जो है ये वैलिड कंसिडरेशन नहीं कहलाएगा. कंसिडरेशन मस्ट नॉट बी इलीगल, इम्पॉसिबल, अनसर्टेन और इमोरल. कंसिडरेशन इलीगल नहीं होना चाहिए. जैसे कि यदि मैं आपके साथ एक अग्रीमेंट करती हूँ दैट यू हिट अ पर्टिकुलर पर्सन, आई एम गोइंग टू गिव यू ₹5,000, तो आपको जो कंसिडरेशन मिल रहा है दैट इज इलीगल कंसिडरेशन बिकॉज लॉ डज नॉट परमिट एनीबडी टू हिट एनीबडी. नेक्स्ट इज कंसिडरेशन शुड नॉट बी इम्पॉसिबल. यदि मैं आपसे एक अग्रीमेंट करती हूँ, यहाँ पर हम हमेशा 2 एग्जाम्पल लेंगे पैरेलल लाइंस मीट करने वाला. मैं बोल रही हूँ यदि आप 2 पैरेलल लाइंस को मिला दोगे मैं आपको 10,000 रुपए दूंगी. सो हियर इट इज एन इम्पॉसिबल कंसिडरेशन, हमें पता है ये काम कभी हो ही नहीं सकता. नेक्स्ट इज कंसिडरेशन शुड नॉट बी अनसर्टेन. जैसे कि अगर मैं आपको कहूँ कि यू गेट पर्टिकुलर कमोडिटी फॉर मी, I promise to pay you as per my capacity. Now, what is capacity? Capacity is something that cannot be decided, so it is uncertain. Consideration हमेशा आपको fixed amount में mention करना है, fixed and clear amount में. And consideration should not be immoral. Immoral मतलब opposed to public policy. जैसे कि यदि हम कहें कि आप promise करो कि आप वो ट्रेन की जो कुछ फैंस है वो तोड़ दोगे, लाइट्स तोड़ दोगे, and I am going to give you ₹5,000 for this. So this is something that is against the public policy, and the consideration that you would be getting for doing this kind of work, it is immoral, and this would not be permitted. This would not be considered as valid consideration. Consideration need not be adequate. Consideration has to be there. Law says consideration hona chahiye. Whether it is adequate or not is not what comes under the purview of this particular topic, that is consideration. से फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर मेरे पास एक वॉच है जिसकी प्राइस है 10,000, आपने मुझे धमकी दी कि यदि आपने मुझे ये वॉच 2,000 रुपये में नहीं बेची तो मैं आपको बहुत पीट दूंगा. If you are doing so and I am scared of your threats, I would end up selling this watch to you. यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है, आपको वॉच मिल रही है, मुझे 2,000 रुपये मिल रहे हैं. 10,000 की घड़ी के 2,000 तो मिल रहे हैं ना, कुछ तो मिल रहा है. सो इट इज consideration. This would be valid consideration, but as coercion is applied over here, that would be considered in in another way. These are the notes on the case of Chinaya versus Ramaiya. That is, a father gifted the whole of his property to his daughter on the condition that she should pay an annuity to her uncle, that is, father's brother. On the same day, the daughter entered into an agreement with her uncle and agreed to pay the annuity. Later on, the daughter refused to pay on the ground that the uncle did not give any consideration to her. The court held that the consideration was paid by the father on behalf of her uncle. Therefore, the uncle was entitled to the annuity. I hope this is clear now. So, from the above discussion, it's clear that a stranger to consideration can file a suit to enhance his right. Exceptions to consideration. जो हमने ये लॉ की बात करी है, no consideration, no contract, both the parties should get something in return, but there are certain exceptions to this rule. These are the exceptions. मतलब कई बार ऐसा होता है कि वैलिड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होता है, एक पार्टी को कंसिडरेशन मिल रहा है, एक को नहीं मिल रहा, बट स्टिल इट्स अ वैलिड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. जैसे पहला है प्रॉमिस मेड आउट ऑफ लव एंड अफेक्शन. जैसे कई बार वी लव आवर चिल्ड्रन, वी मेक अ प्रॉमिस टू देम कि बेटा आपको मैं अपनी सारी प्रॉपर्टी दे दूंगी, मैं आपको हर महीने 10,000 रुपये दूंगी. ये अगर इस टाइप का प्रॉमिस हम अपने बच्चों को कर रहे हैं, इट इज मेड आउट ऑफ लव एंड अफेक्शन. एंड यहाँ पर अलाउड है कि एक पार्टी को मिल रहा है और एक पार्टी को कुछ नहीं मिल रहा. A promise made to compensate for voluntary services. Say for example, यदि मैं किसी का कुछ पर्स गुम गया है और वो पर्स मैं मुझे मिल गया और मैं उनको वापस कर रही हूँ. This is an example of a voluntary service, that is to return something that does not belong to you to the person who actually owns it. And if they are doing so, and that person gives a promise to us कि मैं ठीक है आपने ये काम मेरा पर्स ढूंढ के दिया है, मैं आपको 2,000 रुपये इनाम दूंगा, और बाद में वो इनाम देने से मना कर दे या मुझे वो इनाम दे रहा है और उसके बदले मैं उसको कुछ नहीं दे पा रही. तो दिस इज ऑल्सो अ वैलिड, this would be considered as consideration. Next is written promise to pay a time barred debt. Now, what is a time barred debt is what we need to understand over here. Say for example, जैसे बिजनेस में आप लोगों ने एक टर्म सुना होगा बैड डेट्स. बैड डेट्स का मतलब क्या होता है? ऐसी डेट्स जो हमें लग रहा है कि हमें यहाँ से पैसे नहीं आने वाले हैं, तो हमने उसको राइट ऑफ कर दिया. से फॉर एग्जाम्पल किसी बिजनेस की बुक्स में कुछ एक 50,000 रुपये का डेट है, कोई पर्सन से पैसा लेना है बिजनेस हाउस को, और 50,000 रुपये अब वो समझ गए पूरी कोशिशों के बाद दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू रिकवर दिस अमाउंट फ्रॉम द पर्सन एंटाइटल्ड टू पे. तो हम क्या करते हैं बिजनेस की बुक्स में, वी राइट ऑफ दिस अमाउंट. हमें 50,000 रुपये का जो अमाउंट जो हमें लग रहा है अब हमें नहीं मिलने वाला है, हम उसको बैड डेट्स करके लिख कर उसको फिनिश ऑफ कर देते हैं. बट कई बार क्या होता है, मे बी दैट पर्सन इज गुड, उसका इंटेंशन नहीं था हमारे पैसे इस तरीके से वापस ना करने का, बट मे बी उसकी कुछ स्थिति ऐसी थी कि वो हमें पैसे वापस नहीं कर पा रहा था. मे बी आफ्टर 5-6 years वी मीट दैट पर्सन एंड दैट पर्सन टेल्स अस, आई स्टिल रिमेंबर कि मुझे आपको 50,000 रुपीज देने हैं. उस वक्त आई वॉज गोइंग थ्रू अ डिफिकल्ट टाइम, सो आई कुड नॉट पे दैट अमाउंट टू यू, बट आई डू हैव गुड इंटेंशंस. अब मैं आपको ये पैसे देना चाहता हूँ. तो इस टाइप का यदि कुछ पैसा कोई हमें वापस कहीं से आ रहा है जो हम ऑलरेडी राइट ऑफ कर चुके हैं, this particular debt is called as a time barred debt, means a debt which has already been written off in the books of accounts. So if there is any such promise made by a party, we have to take that promise in writing to make it a valid agreement. So if this kind of agreement is made, here also one party would be giving an amount and the other party is not giving anything in return. So it would be called as a valid consideration. Gifts, etc. actually made. Whenever we go to parties, we definitely give gifts. So when we are giving gifts, we are giving something to the other party and the other party is not giving anything to us. But still this would be called as a valid consideration. Next is to create agency. We would be discussing this topic agency, which comes under special contracts in the next videos to come. But here we need to understand that the relationship of agency is between the principal and the agent. एंड टेक्निकली एजेंसी का रिलेशनशिप कंसिडर करने के लिए हमें कोई कंसिडरेशन की ज़रूरत नहीं होती. बट यदि हम किसी को अपना एजेंट अपॉइंट करेंगे और उसको कुछ नहीं देंगे तो पीपल वुड नॉट बी रेडी टू वर्क फॉर अस. सो technically, as per law, to create a relationship of agency, consideration is not required. But on practical grounds, we do give consideration in the form of commission. Here is the test. If consideration is inadequate, the contract would be void, valid, or voidable. You have to choose one term out of these. Next is consideration must move at the desire of the dash. A promise to pay a time barred debt must be dash. Case of doctrine of constructive consideration. Which case is it? This you need to find out. That will be all for this particular video on consideration. And if you follow the notes and the explanations, I'm sure you will be in a position to frame a very good answer on this particular topic. Many a times when a question comes on this particular topic, it is framed as what is consideration? What are the essentials of a valid consideration? इस टाइप का क्वेश्चन बनता है या फिर what are the essentials of a valid consideration can come under short notes also. So that will be all for this particular video of mine. In case if you have any doubts, please do consider this mail ID and contact me. Thank you so much.